The bass has actually dropped this morning as we have music to kick off the show. Maybe that's in honor of the dearly departed manager of Juventus, Maurizio Sarri, has been relieved of his duties after winning a Scudetto and going out in the round of 16 in the Champions League yesterday to Lyon. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the effects on coaching lists around the world. We will talk about the other Champions League match yesterday as well. There's two more today. We've also got Atlanta United 2 and Birmingham tonight in USL Championship. Lots of different things to dig into. But we got to start with Sarri and Juve. Were you surprised, John?
No, because you look at their idea of wanting to be prepared to win Champions League and be prepared to win things domestically. And if you're bumped out in the round of 16, then the answer to that, I guess, is a no. And it's just, once again, when you have these super clubs that we always talk about, the clubs with the international brands and everything, then you have the result where you get knocked out in the 16s. And no, it's not a surprise.
I mean, in some ways, it's a surprise. As some have said, he won the league title. He's got to be one of the first managers to win a European title, be relieved of his duties, and then win a league title the next year with a different club and be relieved of his duties.
Yeah.
Maurizio Sarri is not your typical manager. When you look at his CV, there's a lot of clubs you probably don't know much about. Then there's Napoli and what he did there, Empoli before that. Then the year at Chelsea where he was never accepted. The year at Juventus where he was frankly never accepted. Mm-hmm. And that's the issue here. It's been very interesting to see the reaction on this side of the Atlantic to this because there's a certain team in the city that we're in that has an opening right now. And there's been a few folks who have said immediately, like, go get Maurizio Sarri. He's not just an easy guy to step in and fit into any team. And that was part of the problem at Juventus. And this needs to be understood as part of the issue. Sky Sport Italia is also reporting on this as well, that Chief Football Officer Fabio Paratici is potentially going to get fired as well. A lot of blame. He pushed to get rid of Allegri last year, but then he didn't give the players that Sarri wanted for his game. And Sarri ball is a thing. Like, he has a certain way of playing. It's not very flexible. That's why I don't think he's a fit here, because he's not going to have that say over going out and getting every player he wants. That's not how Atlanta United has operated. But he needs certain kinds of players. So it's something you're going to have to commit to him for a period of time. You're not going to get what you want out of him in a year. It's impossible. Michael Cayley, who writes for 538 in The Athletic, had a really good point about one potential replacement for Maurizio Sarri, but it's honestly the same point when it comes to Sarri. You go back and you look at Mauricio Pochettino, and he is the betting favorite in Italy right now to take over for Sarri at Juventus, and he makes a lot of sense. But when he started at Tottenham, he had to basically take a year where they were not going to be as successful as they needed to. He had to get some of the old guard out of the team. He had to bring a younger group in that would work with the way he wanted to work and build a team in his image, in his style. If Pochettino goes to Juventus, he's going to have to do the same thing. But as we saw this year, you don't get that opportunity at Juventus. It's not about just, okay, we can chalk up a year, bad year, whatever. No, that's not acceptable. You have to win the league, and you have to do the other things as well, and winning Champions League, winning the Cups. I mean, Sarri lost the Supercoppa, he lost the Coppa Italia. Those things hurt him as much as only picking up one trophy this year in the Serie A title. Pochettino going to Juventus would need time. They don't really seem to want to give time. Sarri going anywhere needs time. He has to go to a club that's going to give him time, as would Pochettino. Keep those things in mind when you talk about Atlanta and Juventus, which are in two different worlds. We have to be realistic about this. Atlanta United is a big club in this hemisphere, and it's a club that's rewriting the rule book and rewriting perceptions. you're not competing with Juventus for managers. It's a different conversation, and that's not anything diminishing what is going on in Atlanta. It's just the reality right now. So this changes the conversation. I've always felt like Pochettino would end up in a big job. Something would come available for him that he would want to take in Europe. This appears to be it. He has said in the past that his family's Italian roots are in the Turin area. His family back home are Juventus supporters. It all seems to fit, doesn't it?
Tafka's in this morning, and he says he could see Poch going to Juventus. He's not coming here, parenthetical. He says he's not coming here. There's nothing to gain. The world is too big to be that restrictive on managers.
He's too young, too. I mean, he hasn't won a trophy yet in Europe. He's not leaving Europe right now. It's not happening.
And then love the game kind of guy in the vertical tiki-taka. There's some letters I think that are missing. He said these things sound familiar. So a lot of talk about Pochettino in the Twitter time.
Whoa, wait a minute. I think you're misreading what Tafka was saying. And let me make sure that I'm going to read it correctly. Hold on one second. Let me make sure I get this, because that's not the way that I read it. Maybe something changed. Maybe I missed it. Okay. Talking about Sarri. That's what it was. You left that part out, John. And he said, but Sarri seems like he might be a tailor-made fit for Atlanta. That's kind of a big part of what Tafka is saying. But as we saw, you're not going to get a bunch of time. That's a fact. Atlanta and Juventus do have that part in mind. The reaction to Frank de Boer should make that abundantly clear. He won 2 trophies. He didn't play in the style that people wanted, and that's something that Darren Eales has talked about as well. And he's not here anymore. So Maurizio Sarri at Chelsea, at Juventus, needed time to build the team that he wanted to build, to play the way that he wanted to play. He didn't get that time at either place. He won trophies at both places, but he's been pushed out. He would need time here, and I don't think he would get that time here. And the way he was treated in London with Chelsea, I think was really unfair. Mm-hmm. I thought some really disappointing things were said about Maurizio Sarri out of the media there. He would be difficult here in terms of dealing with the media as well, and I think he'd need more time than Atlanta would want to give him at this point. He needs to go to a project that he can build up. There's definitely projects like that. I don't know if he would want to come work in the United States either. Let's be fair about that. But he needs to go to a team that he can elevate and he can have time to build. I don't think that would be Atlanta. I think that's something you have to consider when you talk about potential managers in Atlanta. It's not just getting a good manager. You have to get somebody who fits the profile. This is a profile of a club that wants to win in a certain way, and wants to win quickly. So for somebody who needs time to build, might not be the best fit.
Yeah, Nick Toole says, I'm sort of not ready to let go of the Pochettino pipe dream for Atlanta. Maybe in 10 years, though.
People, you're talking about jobs like Real Madrid, Manchester United, Juventus, Barcelona. That's who Pochettino's being linked to. Atlanta United's not in that ballpark right now. It's just not. So this is something that I think Atlanta's been really good at doing at times, whether it's a player signing or any kind of rumor. It gets elevated to a point that gets unrealistic. Let's slow down. If for some reason Pochettino missed out on all of the big jobs in Europe, I still think he might sit out and wait for one to open up, because it always does. He's not at the point in his career that this would be the fit for him. This is the fit for somebody like Tata Martino, who had a couple blemishes on his CV and had the opportunity at a later stage in his career to kind of call his shot. He did. It worked out for him. He ended up getting an even more lucrative job on the other side of it. Good for Tata Martino. Frank de Boer came in after success initially as a manager, then a couple of big blips on his resume, and he needed to rebuild his resume a little bit. Jury's out on if he did. I think he did. I think he'll get a job in Europe if he wants it. but that's why he came here. He wasn't in the position that Pochettino is. Pochettino has his pick. Any job that opens up, Pochettino's name's going to come up. So, again, let's be realistic. Is he on a sheet of paper? Yes. Are you going to try to give him a call and have a conversation? Absolutely. Is it in any way realistic? No, it's not.
Cuppers with a trivia question this morning, and I don't know if there's any other answer. He wants to know, has anyone been fired in back-to-back seasons after winning Europe one season and the league title the next?
I just said I don't know that. It probably hasn't happened. It's pretty uncommon for this to be the case. I don't have the trivia answer, but yeah, I said I don't think this has happened before. Cuppers is dead on with this. Sarri's an interesting figure because he's not part of the football hierarchy. So it's very easy when there's something about the results or something about anything, frankly, to push him out the door because he's not one of the old guard. He wasn't a legendary player. You're able to take some shots at him in the media that maybe you're not able to take it at other figures in the game. And you pushed him out at Chelsea. I mean, the whole situation with Kepa last year was an embarrassment. The club should have backed Sarri on that 100%. Felt like they didn't. Just the comments, like acting like he didn't know what he was doing. I mean, come on. That's arrogant. Juventus, he needed time. And as was pointed out by Sky Sport Italia, he didn't have all the pieces that he needed to work with this. He still won the league. He still scored 100 goals with his team. He still got to a Coppa Italia final. He still got to the round of 16 in Champions League, which was a round further back than where they were knocked out last time. And Champions League has become the goal. But as Pep Guardiola said, and many others have said about the Champions League, it's a bit of a crapshoot. You can't define your season or your club by it. Now, Juve, Bayern, PSG, they can, because the league title's almost an afterthought at this point. But it's still a crapshoot. It still depends on the draw. I mean, would Maurizio Sarri have beaten Lyon if you hadn't had the pandemic? Probably, because Memphis Depay was injured. Probably you would have. Then you'd be into the quarterfinals. Would that be good enough to keep your job? Maybe so. It's a crapshoot. When you start managing your club based off lottery tickets, you're going to be in this situation. And what you do is you destabilize everything. Juve has to get this next hire right, and they do need somebody like a Pochettino because they need somebody who's going to build because they have to rebuild to get to a Champions League winning kind of squad. But they've also got to have some patience that maybe they take a step back in that building process. Building doesn't always go in a straight line. And that's something that Juventus is going to need to do to get to that point. This roster is not good enough to win the Champions League. They need somebody who can come in and build a unit that can, while also still holding off the challengers in Italy, which isn't going to be easy because they're getting stronger and it's getting more challenging. But you've got to do that too. It's a really tough job because of that Champions League pressure that is, frankly, unrealistic.
And now you've got the, what are you?
Coconut Red Bull. I think you need some Mountain Dew this morning too. You sound very tired, John.
Oh, no question. Yeah, just because you transition from Friday to Saturday, it ends up being a 1:30 bedtime because you can't fall asleep. So, yeah, once we finish what's in here, which is not Mountain Dew, we will definitely be going into the Mountain Dew.
Should have got the Mountain Dew to start with, John.
Yeah, but you want to finish what's in the cup first and foremost.
You shouldn't have started with something else. That's what I'm saying. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Bruh.
Bruh. Yeah, I feel like Steven Garcia. Jason Nix discussing what happened in action yesterday. Mm-hmm. And a lot of this is focused on Varane, I think. He says there were some howlers in defense and goal yesterday in the best competition in the world. Just imagine if those had been in hashtag MLS's back semis.
Oh, people would have lost their minds and acted like ridiculous fools if that had happened in MLS. Funny how that doesn't happen. It's kind of crazy, but it's true. Varane's one of the best center backs in the world, and he had a bad day at the office. I thought it was really well pointed out, and I want to say it was Jamie Carragher. I might be wrong in this. in the post game where you look at the first goal. It's easy to put all of the blame on Varane, and Varane handled it poorly. You have to put some of the blame on the goalkeeper for playing Varane in that spot when he did and not giving him any options. He was ahead of Varane. He played it back to him.
Yep.
All Varane could do at that point was take a touch to the outside and blast it as far up the field as he could. That was really all he had. And when you're trying to play out, that's the last thing you want to do, but it's what you had to do in that situation because of the ball that was given to you. Varane came out afterwards, and he talked to the Spanish media. He said, "I want to show my face as this defeat is mine. I take responsibility. We had prepared well, but mistakes are paid for at this level very dearly. I cannot explain the mistakes. It can happen in football. A difficult night for me." You got to give him a ton of respect because he could have, not come out and talk to the media. He could have tried to blame somebody else. He could have blamed, just we're out of sync. He could have had all kinds of excuses. He didn't. He just said, look, it's my fault. I made mistakes. You're going to get punished. You make mistakes at this level. And he did. Manchester City wasn't great on the day, but they were good enough. And Real Madrid wasn't good enough to overcome two big mistakes from Varane.
Still wrapping up Abby's gift from the other day, by the way.
How long does it take you to drink Mountain Dew, my friend? Maybe you need to drink faster.
What did my physician's assistant yell at me about?
He didn't say anything about how fast you drink it. He just said don't drink a ton of it. You need to drink it faster right now. That's what I'm saying.
But no, it was, you're right. I think Manchester City did enough and took advantage of the situations that were there in front of them. There were other opportunities that Manchester City had probably that should have been in the back of the net. And, once again, you took advantage of what was there in front of you. You did enough to win. I know that there were a lot of reports across the pond that it was a masterclass by Pep Guardiola in the second leg. No.
I didn't see any of that.
No, it was... No. You took advantage of the mistakes that were made, and you put the ball in the back of the net when those mistakes were made. It wasn't a complete and total clamping down and frustrating effort all the way across the board. No, it was you took advantage of the mistakes, and in this particular competition right now, coming back out of the pandemic, you do what you have to do. Manchester City did what they had to do. They won. They moved on.
No, we got to stop using cliches. I mean, I didn't see anybody saying that. I would have laughed at the article if I'd seen it or if I'd heard that. Pep had a good game plan. I mean, you can't say that Pep lucked into the win. No, Pep had a good game plan, but Pep got a couple gifts handed to him, and sometimes that's all you need. It takes the pressure off. And Manchester City got a couple of gifts. They got a gift early, which really took the pressure off. Now, Real Madrid answered back and made it a match, but then you got another gift. You take advantage of the gifts. Pep did well. They need to be a little bit better, moving on, but you could say that for pretty much everybody in this competition at this point because it's a weird competition. The timelines are strange. The delays in playing are weird. You sit for a few weeks, you sit for longer if you're one of the German clubs. You play one competitive game if you're the French clubs. I mean, it's difficult. So Pep had a good game plan. It wasn't 100% in terms of Manchester City's performance, but it was good enough to go through. You need those moments.
Found it.
Nobody wants to say that you need luck in this game. You absolutely need luck in this game. You can have a great match and get beat by a team that has an even better match, and you can have a bad match and you can win 5-0 because the other team had an even worse match. It does happen. You need to be the best team possible to win the most games possible, but sometimes, especially in a Champions League situation, especially in this kind of situation where you're essentially in knockouts, luck will help you. You need luck sometimes.
Here's the article from The Telegraph. Headline, Pep Guardiola's masterclass in pressure inflicts rare night of torment for Real Madrid.
It's a stretch. It's exaggerated. I mean, Pep's teams are always going to they're always going to play with pressure on teams. They're always going to put pressure on teams. Yeah, he forced the mistakes, of course. I mean, if you back off, you're not getting the situation where Varane gives you the first goal. But that feels like a stretch. That just feels like I don't know what else to write. That's kind of a given that Pep's teams are going to pressure the opponent.
opening paragraph before it goes behind the paywall. The perfect Pep Guardiola plan for the biggest night of their season propelled Manchester City into the Champions League last night and showed the old masters of the competition to the door with a haste to which many of this great Real Madrid generation are unaccustomed.
Lots of fancy words, not really saying much, which is about how this game was, to be perfectly honest. I mean, the game was, you give up a couple goals via mistakes, you're pretty much done. Your goose is cooked at that point. You give up a couple goals like that, so there's not much else to say. I mean, Manchester City was good. Real Madrid was worse. That's the game in a nutshell. There's not too much. The other game had a lot of other things to talk about. A very interesting referee in the first half. Some very interesting decisions. We'll get there in a second. Let's get caught up on Twitch because there's been lots of comments there. Ricky Ricardo's pulling for Atalanta now. Both of his teams lost. Sorry, Ricky. Chris Ashley starting the Sorry to ATL hashtag. Yeah, there you go. Ricky Ricardo says he's waiting for your phone to ring, so Sorry can tell you that he's coming to Atlanta, John. Haven't heard your phone in a minute, so be on the lookout. Make sure that ringer's on.
Coming to Atlanta.
Ragamuffin says he's going to give Sorry all the free cigarettes that he needs in Atlanta. I mean, if he goes to, when the bars are open again, if he goes to one of the bars that has the people come in and give away cigarettes, well, he's set. So that's all he's got to do. He can't smoke inside, though. That's going to be a problem.
That's the thing. He's going to have to be munching on a lot of gum or just munching on the cigarettes themselves indoors.
Yeah, he's going to have some problems with that. So we'll see how Maurizio Sarri would handle it. Let's see what else we got here. Sarri to Dortmund, according to Joe Johnstone. No, that's not going to work. Ricky said, what managers on my list fit into the categories I was talking about with Atlanta? Somebody who has to come in and be adaptable, somebody who has to come in and win, and somebody who has to come in and meet a style component that is not super definable. You know, like it was a joke, but Joe mentioned, Dortmund. Dortmund has a style. You expect to see Dortmund play in a certain way. It's not style in we want to score a bunch of goals. It's we expect Dortmund to play in this way, and it's the way that Jurgen Klopp, developed. And if you came in and you played a bunker and counter kind of style, people would look at you like you're crazy. It wouldn't be acceptable there. And also, if you came in and you didn't press and you became we're going to get the ball and we're going to keep it for as long as possible, kind of an old-school tiki-taka team, you'd be looked at like you have three heads. Atlanta doesn't have that. It's kind of loose. It's just you're expected to play with flair, with attacking mentality. That can be defined in a lot of ways. What managers on my list would meet the standards of being adaptable and would come in and kind of fit that style component? It's tough. I mean, I haven't dug all the way down into the style questions because you see advocates for Ariel Holan, for example, from Independiente. Could the style part work? I mean, I watched his Independiente teams in the Sudamericana run with Ezequiel Barco, and they were good. They were easy on the eyes. They were fun to watch. You put Barco in a very free role. You created ways to attack and consistent ways to attack, and he could absolutely work. He's never worked outside of South America. Would he be able to handle the pressure involved? Is it different than being at an Independiente? It is. Is it more pressure? I think it's different pressure. So I don't know. I mean, personality-wise would be my question with him. Gabriel Heinze is another one that there's been a lot of people kind of pushing for him to be considered as a candidate. His work at Vélez was very good. His style of play, I think, suits it. Again, has he been at a big club? And Atlanta's a big club. Don't take what I said about saying Atlanta's not Juventus or Bayern or the clubs that Mauricio Pochettino is being linked to say that it's not a big club. It's a big club in this world. It's a bigger club in the U.S., and I know some old school Argentine fans would disagree on this, but Vélez is not in the same place in Argentina that Atlanta is in the United States when it comes to pressure. It's not. There's other clubs that have bigger expectations. It's a club with tons of history, and it's a club that needed to get back to where it had been, and Heinze had a part in doing that. But it's a different job. Would he fit here because of that? Also, being in a different place where he's never worked, is that going to be a fit? That's going to be part of the equation here. Then you look at the other side, you look at somebody like a Javier Aguirre, who maybe the style part there would be questions about. He's a little more pragmatic. But Aguirre, with his experience and being, a manager of the Mexican national team, working in Liga MX, working in La Liga, maybe the transition at his age with his experience wouldn't be as hard coming to the United States. He's been in jobs with big pressure. But the style question, would he be adaptable enough stylistically to play in the way that Atlanta would want him to play? That's the other part. So it's not like a checklist. It's not like prerequisites. That's the hardest thing here. Is you have some teams that have some basic prerequisites for who's going to be under consideration and who isn't. Atlanta's not that. You have some kind of loosely defined things that are going to, write the job description, and that's sometimes harder because you're looking for the right fit. Fit's not always defined. It's not a checklist of, okay, he's done this, okay, he's won a trophy, okay, his team scored 90 goals in a season, okay, his team's averaged, 1.8 points per game in a season. It's not like that. It's open to interpretation. So I'm going to be fascinated to see where this goes. The questions are going to come when you start hearing, okay, this person is being talked to, or this person's agent is talking to the club, or this person puts out that they're interested in the job. That's where it kicks up a notch. Right now, it's a blank sheet of paper. It's a blank sheet of paper. Are there people on it like a Mauricio Pochettino, like a Maurizio Sarri? Of course. They're out of work. You have to consider everybody you can consider. Are they realistic? No, I don't think so. And I don't think either one necessarily fits the job here that this will take. And that's going to be a tough thing to define. So whoever, I think, tells you that this is easy and these are the candidates and there's no other candidates, no, it's not going to be that easy. Atlanta's in a weird spot where it's a big job in its own universe. It's not a big job in the world's game, but it's a big job that could be appealing to big managers with the right fit and with their right situation. Rafa Benitez is another one who kind of fits like maybe he's in that conversation because he's not waiting on a big job in Europe. He's had big jobs in Europe. He is currently in China. Maybe he wants to get out of China. Maybe he is somebody who would be open to a new challenge like this. And the other thing about Rafa is he recruited Miguel Almiron, so he was paying attention to what was going on in Atlanta and in MLS. He would have, even without working here, he would have that level of, I think, understanding of what the job would entail and what the level is. And he went to China, so he would be open to a new challenge. Rafa Benitez, if you're looking for like a name that might fit that nebulous fit question, Rafa Benitez might be the guy.
For me, this is just adding to my continuing education of the game because I'm hearing all of these names that are mentioned, a lot of them with South American ties, a lot of them with ties to Mexico and what have you. For me, that's a part of the soccer universe that I'm still learning about, hanging out with you and hanging out with.
Yeah, but John, honestly, here's the thing. You've seen this kind of situation play out in college football. I mean, we're talking soccer managers, but the things we're saying are universal to hiring a coach, hiring a manager.
No doubt.
Because, in the college football universe, if you're going to compare that to the world soccer universe, Atlanta United is, like a Boise State, in that it's a big fish in its pond.
Right.
But it's not Oklahoma, it's not Michigan, it's not Notre Dame. So it requires a specific kind of person to take that job. There's also an expectation of putting up a bunch of points, not coming in being a defensive coach, that kind of stuff. So that part's universal. I mean, I think sometimes we get locked into this that soccer's so different than everything else. It's not. It's not. This is a situation that we see play out all the time in sports. And you have to look at it in that way, because if Boise State went out and said, we are Notre Dame and we're going to hire somebody that Notre Dame would hire, they'd get laughed out of the room, wouldn't they?
Mm-hmm.
If the media in Boise came out and said, whoever the biggest name that's available,
you're
right
going to
now,
steal Brian Kelly away from Notre Dame.
Yeah, if the media came out and said something like that, I mean, they get laughed out of the room. That's the conversation here. It's the same thing. It's in the world of football, in the world of soccer, Atlanta United is a big fish in its pond, and it's a completely different pond. And it's a growing pond, but it is not the European theater. It is not the major clubs in Europe. It's not the UEFA Champions League. So you have to think about it in that way. And that's why then when you get to names like a Gabriel Heinze, that's like the typical, you hear about somebody from a D2 or D3 school who's on the way up, or a coordinator who's on the way up and has some experience but could step up into a bigger job.
Like Chris Peterson, when he was at Boise, ends up going to Washington.
Yeah, it's the same thing. But he had to go to Boise first to make that move. So those types of managers are a possibility too. But you also see situations where a bigger name that is either looking for a new challenge, looking to grow something from the ground up, or needs a boost to his resume because there's been some blips in it. That job can be appealing to them too. It's the exact same thing.
And like I said, for me, it's those names that, because like I said, I haven't followed the South American game, but I'm learning more about it through, like I said, conversations with you and with Jarrett and everyone else that is a part of the SDH family. So for me, this is a part of my growing education in all of this. I understand the context of where you're coming from when it comes to bringing in names for Atlanta United, where Atlanta United in this hemisphere is a big name. But when it compares to European theater, et cetera, it's not to that level. So you're going to be bringing in those, to mix my sports analogies again, those Division II, those coordinators, those 1AA, the FCS guys. So that's where my education is growing.
No, but not just.
Right.
And that's the thing you have to understand. Tata Martino wasn't that. Frank DeBoer wasn't that.
No.
You can go down that road, but Atlanta's actually never hired down that road. So Ricky Ricardo actually, and you tell me if this fits what I'm describing, the Mac Brown type.
For which context?
That's what Atlanta's looking for. He was at a big job, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, he was, and then he went away.
Yeah.
Did TV, then came back to. But
came back. Okay, hold on. For people who don't understand, because we cross streams here.
Right.
He was at, correct me if I'm wrong, Texas. He did well, but not well enough.
Right.
And then was he fired or did he leave? Doesn't really matter, but
depends on what your perspective.
Mutual parting of the ways.
Mutual parting of the ways.
He goes and does TV.
Yes.
And then he goes to North Carolina.
Check.
And that's a lesser job.
Yes.
But that's the kind of hire that you've seen here. Now, Tata Martino didn't go away and do TV. Tata Martino was with a national team in Argentina, but there were questions on if he could win the big one. Frank DeBoer, younger, but had some success at you want to say smaller program, you're going to anger the Dutch fans, but Ajax is not at the same level as the bigger clubs in Europe. He stepped up into bigger leagues. It didn't work for a lot of reasons, and I don't think they're all Frank's. And then he needed to jump up a level again. Right. So he comes to Atlanta, which is a step down from the Premier League, and enter maybe a step sideways from Ajax, but it wasn't a direct step from Ajax. He went up and back.
Yeah.
And then comes here.
Yeah.
But that Rafa Benitez, now you could say working in China is like working on TV in the college football world. But, I mean, it's kind of similar. Like, you could say that Rafa Benitez is a Mac Brown type.
Yeah, that to me, and I guess it's because of the years of experience as a manager and his age compared to other individuals. I would have had Rafa more as the Mac Brown comparison than Frank DeBoer.
Yeah, no. I wasn't saying. I don't think Ricky wasn't saying that. Just talk loosely here. That's one type you're looking for.
Right.
You said you're only looking for somebody coming up from a smaller program, and I don't think that's the case. I think you're looking for Mac Brown types. You're looking for established guys in the right fit who would be open to this.
Yeah.
Tata was that. Frank was that, a younger version and not as much experience. But yes, he was, I would say, established. I mean, he'd worked in big jobs before.
Yeah.
You haven't seen the let's go hire somebody who is on the way up hire yet. You haven't seen the Sebastian Becasese hire yet. You haven't seen the Gabriel Heinze hire yet. Because I'm not even putting Heinze in the Frank de Boer category. I mean, age-wise, you're maybe more comparable, but Heinze hasn't won like Frank did at Ajax. He doesn't have that going for him. That elevated Frank, in my mind, is the 4 titles at Ajax that nobody's ever done before. So Atlanta has typically hired somebody who has established credentials at a level that is comparable or higher. Those are the 2 hires that Atlanta United's made so far. They have not hired the person with credentials at a league, at a level that could be seen as a step lower,
right,
who is on the way up. They have not made that hire before.
Yeah.
So, Ropes asks, to continue the analogies, do you try to hire in this situation, which would be a different conversation and doesn't translate as well to soccer because you don't see this happen as much, but Ropes says, do you hire a Saban assistant? You know, do you go try to get somebody from a coaching tree who maybe doesn't have that experience as the head guy?
Well,
I don't think this job suits it.
The thing about Saban's assistants, though, is that they have past experience as head coaches in other programs.
Kirby didn't.
You talk Kiffin, Sarkisian.
Kirby didn't, though.
Yeah, Kirby was a coordinator. Mike Loxley, Bielema, all of those guys that come in as the Butch Davis as those advisors, those unpaid advisors.
Yeah, that's not his assistants though. I don't even put that as his assistants. His coordinators that he's had. Because that's the only real comparable thing here is, you're not going to see. I don't think you'd ever see Atlanta make the Kirby Smart kind of hire. A very successful number 2. This is what New York City did. New York City did the Kirby Smart hire, essentially. Now, Dome Tarrant was older and had experience as a number 1, but it was far back. He was a number 2 going up to a number 1 at a smaller program. I mean, going from Barca to Bayern to Manchester City and then New York City. You're going to a smaller program, but you're becoming the number 1. Now, look, he's parlayed it pretty well. He's in Flamengo now, and he's in a pretty big job there.
Yeah.
But that's the move they made. I don't see Atlanta making that move. The 2 hires before have not been that move. It would be one of those, not coordinators, one of the unpaid assistants and advisors and whatever that nonsense is.
Yeah.
I don't think Atlanta goes down that road. I think they go down the road of somebody who has some established credentials. I think the job is too big to not have that. Yeah. Now, here's the element that is completely different than where we've been, and this is the element that you have to consider in the soccer world. Those established credentials are not the same as a player and a manager, but playing credentials can make up for some of the lack of credentials as a manager. They can. We've seen that happen many, many times in the world. I mean, I've seen a few reports out of Italy that Juventus would consider Andrea Pirlo, who they just hired to be their U23 coach, to be their manager. I think that's insanity. Yeah. But you see players who go pretty quickly from the field to being the number 1. It can work. It doesn't always work. But Zinedine Zidane, for example. Zinedine Zidane had very little coaching experience before he won 3 straight Champions Leagues. I mean, yeah. Pep had 1 year of coaching experience before taking over at Barcelona and winning everything. Mm-hmm. It can happen. That can bridge the gap in that credibility side of it. So it's interesting when you start comparing these jobs. Montreal was an interesting one with Thierry Henry because He had some assistant experience with Belgium, not a ton, but some. He had a bad run as a manager, and then they brought him in.
Monaco, yeah.
Expecting him to come up and be a big-time guy here. I agree with Ricky. Like, Zidane feels like an outlier. I don't think Atlanta can take that risk.
Right.
I think Atlanta in this hire is going to look for somebody with established credentials and preferably at a level comparable or higher. And, the more we talk about a Rafa Benitez, that is the kind of profile that Atlanta has hired before in a Tata Martino. To find somebody in the profile of Frank de Boer with less experience but success, it's tough. They're out there, but they're a little bit tougher to identify. With Rafa, you'd still have to get him out of his Chinese job, and he'd have to be interested. That's the tricky element here is I think the kind of hire you're looking for, it's going to take the right situation and the person in the right situation, either available or at a job that they're ready to step away from. Yeah. I don't think the going from a player to be a manager quickly works in this job, in this city, and with this club, and where they are right now. Because right now, you're edging into that Juventus idea of you got to win, and you got to win now, but you also have to play a certain way to do that. Juventus, I don't think they care how they play.
Yeah.
They want to win Champions League, which is a crapshoot, but that's what they've decided everything is based on. So that's the job that's at hand. They need to be careful in hiring somebody who's going to need time to build, or they're going to have to bite the bullet and allow somebody to build. Other jobs are not defined in that way, and the style becomes a bigger part of it. Here, I don't know. There's a lot of talk about style, but it's more about the winning, I think. The problem is, and this is the thing we haven't seen play out here yet, my feeling has always been that if you are meeting the style component of the job, whatever that is, especially in this case where it's been established that playing in an attacking way, scoring a bunch of goals, that is what Atlanta United wants to be. Okay. We talked about it with the quote from Darren about rather winning 4-3 than 1-0. Both you'd rather do than lose. Anyway, you'd rather do that. I mean, I would assume that you'd rather lose 4-3 than lose 1-0 if you're ranking those orders. But there's a big gap between the winning and the losing section. So where I've always felt like the losing 4-3 versus the winning 1-0, the winning 1-0, you better keep winning or you're in trouble. And I think we've seen that play out. If you're losing 4-3 regularly, do you get the same consideration? I think it's still a theory that you do. I'm not convinced that you do, based off some of the reactions I've seen and some of the things I've heard and the kind of the feel of it. And it's just a feel. But I think if you're losing 4-3 consistently, you're going to be treated in the same way, at least closely, as you are if you're winning 1-0 regularly. If you're not winning those trophies at the end of the day, the 1-0 wins aren't going to give you that much cushion over the 3-4 losses.
Yeah.
They're both going to put you in trouble. And that's going to be an interesting component because, yeah, you want to play an attacking style, but you have to win. This is a job that I do think more than anything, it is about winning leagues, winning trophies. That's it. Yeah. You want to do it in a way that everybody enjoys to watch. But if you play in a way that everybody enjoys to watch, but you're not winning, is that better? I don't know yet. We haven't really seen that yet. But I don't think it is based off some of the reactions.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you're not winning those trophies and you're not advancing into playoffs and making deep playoff runs and those kinds of things and contending for cups and trophies and other competitions. I think that this is going to sound incredibly simplistic, but if you're losing 1-0 or you're losing 2-1, you're losing 3-2, bottom line is you're still losing. If you're winning 4-3, you're winning 1-0. I think folks are gravitating toward the fact that you're getting those 3 points, you're going up the table, you're contending for championships and titles. And so I think that it's a very basic way to look at it. But if you're losing, I don't think it matters how you're losing to folks if you're losing, because the expectation has been set that you're supposed to be chasing after trophies, titles, and cups and finishing high in the standings. Losing to me, you're not getting to that first step in getting toward championships and wins and things like that.
It matters to a small extent, because I think if you're losing 4-3 as opposed to losing 1-0, you'll get a little more consideration. Not much, but a little bit. You get a little bit of that, okay, well, we scored 3 goals. But, yeah, I think it's winning, period. And winning 1-0 is better than losing 4-3 in any form or fashion. I really think that's going to play out, but we'll see. Michael Buckaloo with a funny one trying to continue down the road we've been on. So are we hiring Mark Richt? Not sure if I'm playing the metaphor game correctly. And Ricky Ricardo had the good point. Atlanta United will never be comfortable being a 9-3 team. No. True. There's no way you would have a manager last that long here in that way.
Yeah.
It wouldn't happen.
Especially if you would continue losing to Orlando.
Well, yeah. But, I mean, the establishment of, Frank had a good season.
Yeah.
Frank won 2 trophies. Frank had a good year. They were the number 3 team. They were, a goal away from hosting MLS Cup and maybe winning that again. That would have changed everything. But those margins, it wasn't enough. So, yeah, the Mark Richt one, that's funny. But no, Atlanta United has established that it is not Georgia football in that way. Yeah. It has absolutely established that early on, so that's good. Joe says the ultimate troll grab of Jesse Marsch from RB Leipzig ain't happening. He's going to get a Bundesliga job. And this is another thing to style. I don't think – now, Marsch is an interesting one in that we've seen him work in the Red Bull prism. The Red Bull style is very defined.
Yeah.
If he was outside of the Red Bull program, would he obviously take some of it because it's been successful for him and he's believed in it? But would he change the way he plays like other managers have? Yeah. Maybe so. Maybe not. We don't know. But I don't think that pressing style is what Atlanta's talking about. One, I don't think. Maybe it doesn't matter if it's successful. That's the biggest question, is maybe it's just about the winning. Maybe it's only about the winning. Maybe there are style questions that people just haven't really answered yet. I don't know. It's going to be fascinating.
Well, when Tata Martino changed styles toward the end of the regular season,
he didn't do it at the end of the regular season. Nope, he did it game 1 of the playoffs.
Okay, so when he changed game 1 of the playoffs
in the regular season,
you get into the playoffs, you change your style because you're in the playoffs. Bottom line was what? You were winning and you were advancing,
and nobody talked about the style, and it was defensive.
Yeah.
The Red Bulls opened it up to where you could attack a little bit more. Portland was defensive in their stance in the Cup final, so you opened up a little bit more. But you were defensive in the playoffs in 18. Nobody talked about being defensive. You won.
Yeah.
From 18 to 17, they got more controlling of games. I wouldn't say defensive, but they wanted the ball more. They controlled the game more than the helter-skelter, Peachtree Press, all the time kind of thing that we saw early on. And also, it wasn't the crazy run of games at Mercedes-Benz where you scored a bunch of goals and you were running people out of the building because you were getting early goals. It wasn't that. So 18 was different a little bit, but the playoffs in 18 completely different, and nobody said a word about it. So, All right, we could keep going on and on down this road, but we've got John for about 8 more minutes. So we need to talk Atlanta United, too, before we wrap. They are in Birmingham tonight. It's a 7:30 kick on ESPN+. We're going to do a watch-along here on Twitch only. So if you're listening to this podcast before the Saturday night kickoff, we're only going to be on Twitch for a watch-along, twitch.tv/soccer down here. It'll be like we did for the MLS playoff match the other night, where it will be on. You'll have to watch it. Maybe we'll try to sync up. Maybe we'll have a little bit better luck with it this time because everybody's watching on ESPN+, so we should be pretty close. But what are you looking for in this match tonight, John?
The return of Jackson Conway, first and foremost. With him having sat out midweek from the red card that he picked up. I'm looking at the offense that we've seen from Birmingham with guys like Lapa, Nico Brett, etc. Thompson, Jay Heaps and Thompson have assembled a really strong offensive side. They've put up a lot of goals recently. So I want to see a couple of different things. I want to see how I want to see Jackson Conway up front again. I want to see what the front three look like, if that's the approach that Tony Annan takes. But what I also am looking at is the high-powered offense of Birmingham going up against the younger players of Atlanta United too, with Wiley and Tubbs and having Mojadama there as that anchor. But that offensive push that we're seeing, so it's basically the front line of Birmingham against the back line of Atlanta United too.
Okay. Look at Birmingham and this lineup. Bruno Lapa has been the big surprise, 4 goals in 5 matches. Brian Wright was with the New England Revolution. They didn't pick him up on a permanent. He had 1 year. I think they declined his option, so he goes back to Birmingham. Nico Brett's a guy who scored a bunch of goals in this league historically. Alex Criniale is a good center back at this level. This team, Jonathan Dean leads with 4 assists. Lapa's got a couple. Prosper Kasim's a player that I've liked at Birmingham since he came in last year. They're a difficult team to beat. Atlanta has had some problems with Birmingham at times. Now, one question that's coming up in Twitch is, do you start Jackson Conway or do you start Jackson Conway, pull Amir Bashti? Do you start Bashti, have Conway come off the bench, or do you play them both?
I'm trying to lay out an 11, but yeah, I would play them both, considering what we've seen from Bashti as a playmaker and how he can help push things forward for Atlanta United.
Well, then who do you sit? Because you got to pull somebody. Who do you
That's what
sit?
I'm trying to work on. As I'm sitting here trying to map it out quickly, crap. Trying to come up with everybody up front. That's my question. Do you sit somebody? Because Coleman Gannon to me has been really good so far. You can't sit him because of what I've liked from him out wide. Is it somebody like a Goodrum that you sit with Jackson Conway up top?
I don't think you have the facilities for that, big man.
I'm working on it.
Do you have a pencil? Are you crossing things out?
I'm crossing things out.
All right.
So, yeah,
So know what's going on here?
No, Bruce, we don't, because I'm trying to do something against the time clock here.
Is there a pause here? Is there a pause here?
React to me! So, yeah, I'd like to start them both, but I'm trying to figure out who sits in the interim.
Oh, boy. All right, so this is assuming that everybody is healthy, which is not necessarily a safe assumption coming off of short rest, and the games are going to start stacking up. You're back here at home on Wednesday. So let's go back to the Wednesday lineup that did not have Jackson Conway in it.
Yep.
You saw the back line of Jadama, Tubbs, Gurr on the right, Wiley on the left. According to Garrison Tubbs' Instagram, he will not be with the group tonight. He is headed to Wake Forest. I think that's fine. He needs games. Yeah. And he had an opportunity in a normal season where I think he would have had, by now, 15, 16 USL games. And you'd be in a decision to get a good sense of, is he ready for a homegrown deal? He's only had a handful, and he's been a little shaky at times. He's been up and down since the restart. So going to play in college will be a good thing for him. And he's still part of the group. Like, you can't bring him back to play for Atlanta United 2 now, but you could sign him to a homegrown deal. If he goes to Wake and does really well, you can sign him to a homegrown deal. So keep that in mind. Tubbs should not be there tonight. Does that mean Patrick Nielsen goes straight into the starting lineup? Potentially. Thought he looked okay. I think the pace of play was a little bit of a challenge for him, but let's say that's the easy move as he goes into the lineup. So Gurr, Nielsen, Jadama, Wiley is your back line.
Right.
Midfield. You started with Njai and Riley behind Gannon, with Bashti in a very free role out wide, but he'd come inside. Goodrum on the other side, Mackie Jope up top. So if you're going to play Conway, he's going to go up top. Mackie Jope can go out wide. We know that. What are you doing with your hands?
I'm doing the physical representation of what you're describing and trying to match what's on my sheet of paper.
It's really weird. So here's your decisions. are you going to play two holding midfielders? If you're going to play two holding midfielders, that is most likely Njai and Riley, and that means you're going to play one number 10 in a 4-3-3. Is that Gannon? Is that Bashti? That's a decision you can make. You could give Coleman Gannon a night to come off the bench. You could start Bashti. You could have Bashti come off the bench. You could also have Conway come in up top, move Jope over to the right side, and give Goodrum a day off the bench. But Philip Goodrum was really good on Wednesday. If he's ready to go, I'd like to see him again. So I think it's down to the fitness levels of Goodrum, Gannon, Bashti, and your two holding midfielders. That's going to make your decision for you.
Right. Okay.
But before you go, John, Ricky Ricardo is asking, what is on your shirt?
Oh, that? Oh, that's my LA Aztecs. The dearly departed LA Aztecs of the North American Soccer League. So it's a part of my old dead team collection. I have Memphis, LA, the California Surf, and the other teams that you see on What's Going On.
He has 97 different shirts representing every old North American Soccer League team that has folded.
Pretty close. So, yeah, I mean, for me, yes, it is fitness levels. I agree with you there. But I had Wiley, Jadama, Nielsen, Gurr, Riley, Njai, Bashti, Gannon, Conway, and Mackie Jope. That was my 4-4. That was my 10 guys that I had plus Ben Lundgaard.
Okay, so that back line, leave it out. What's your front six?
Gannon, Bashti, Njai, Riley, Conway, Jope.
And what? So you're leaving Goodrum out?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the one. Okay, got it. I'll give you a wild card, or I'll give you two wild cards. Abdoulaye Jope could come into the holding midfield for Njai or Riley. We've seen him start. Johnny Fortune could come into that holding midfield as well. You could give a start to Lamine Jaunet, who did not play on Wednesday in one of the upfront positions. My wild card of somebody that I think you could see start tonight, because I think he's earned it, is David Mejia. I think Mejia, it's tough on the road. Right now, everything's weird. And Birmingham will have fans, and I know there's some Atlanta United 2 fans who are heading over for that. Everybody stay safe. But Mejia is ready for a start, I think. Do you give it to him here, or do you give it to him at home on Wednesday? That's going to be the decision, because you're going to have to rotate some just to keep guys fresh. Yeah. I'd like to see Mejia from the start and see how he can manage himself over a 60-minute run as opposed to a 20 to 30. Right. That's my wild card tonight, is Mejia getting a start. Maybe I'm just pulling for it.
All right. I'm going to head over to our friends at Barn Burner on Zingo Channel 250 and discuss more of the same things that we discussed here this morning. Watch along a little before 7:30.
Yes. Hold on 1 second while I make myself appear in a different way.
Okay.
Before you go, because then that would freeze
because
everything.
Then it gets all weird and everything.
Yeah, that would be bad.
Go boom.
It's true. As I try to draw myself again, and I can't because that's using it there. So, you know what? You're going to have to pose again. Remember, don't forget you have to pose. You have to make sure you're posed when you disconnect.
Sure. We didn't even get to talk about juice boxes or Aberdeen or the least surprising thing that happened in the Premier League with the naming of Bournemouth's new manager. So there's a lot of stuff left on the table.
Yeah, I'll touch on some of it really quickly. If you guys got any final questions, go ahead and throw them our way. And, John, you can say goodbye to everybody. You normally have to say that because there's a podcast edition, too. Nobody sees the tip of the cap.
At the same time that I need a third hand to do this.
No, just say goodbye and then hit the button as you pose.
Saying goodbye, hitting the button as I pose. See you tonight, guys.
Ay, Dios mío. One day he'll get it. I promise. One day. That was John leaving us. Okay. Final questions as we go. So throw them off. I saw Shooter McGavin hanging out on Twitch. Always fun to see Shooter. He figured out where Jay Heaps had went off to after leaving his beloved New England Revolution. He is the is he technical director? Is he vice president? He is the big muckety-muck in Birmingham, putting together that team. He's done a good job on and off the field, and Tom Sohn is the manager there. They're a tough out. They're going to be a tough team to play. Questions about how you deal with ESPN Plus tonight on multiple screens if you're watching multiple games. You can. I usually do it with the Amazon Fire TV and a computer, but you can also include your phone. I want to say you might be able to have 4 logins to your ESPN Plus subscription. So you can watch multiple screens, and then you can also save a screen for us on Twitch, or at least have the audio up from Twitch as we're talking. So we will be doing that watch along at 7:30. Okay, other questions that I might have missed. I'm with you on no Mackey, no party. If he's ready to go, I think he starts tonight. He's still really raw in terms of, I think, his movement off the ball and just his overall fit. I think he's still adjusting to this level, but you see he's got something. Babukar Njai is another one like that for me, who it feels like they get better and better every time they play. And it's critical for them to get these kinds of games. So those are two guys that have come not out of nowhere, but two guys who didn't come in, with a ton of hype. Two guys who are still, I think, learning on the job. But two guys that, from what you see, could you see them in MLS? Could you see them with the first team? I could, with both. They've still got work to do to get there, but I could see them getting to that point. Some players you see, okay, I think they're a USL level player. I think they're a second division player. These two guys look like they have the materials to be first team guys. There's still work to do. There's still a good bit of work to do. But two guys to keep an eye on with Atlanta United too. Okay. Turner Kirby. Turner always asks a lot of good questions here. And no, we don't need a bunch of cardboard Johns at the bins. The fraction would be funny, though, if that wanted to happen. But don't do that. Donate your money to something else. Don't buy a bunch of cardboard Johns to hold up in the crowd. People will be very confused. Turner Kirby says, how fiscally viable would a bubble for the completion of the season be? Also, would the MLSPA agree to it again? Oh, it'd be tough because, you're talking about 18 games. I don't think you could do a bubble for 18 games because even if you're doing them in a compressed way, you're talking 12 weeks. I don't see it. If they balked at the 10 weeks plus that was originally put on the table for the bubble in Orlando, then you're going to get balking on anything beyond that, to be honest. So, no, I don't see it. You'd have to do it almost in like mini bubbles, which you'd have to put breaks in between. So if you go and you do 6 games in a bubble, and then have time at home, have a month off, and then go to another bubble. And yeah, you'd probably have to do it back in Orlando because there's not many places unless you're doing it on turf to make that work. I think you'd have to do mini bubbles to make it work, Turner, and you'd have to do a series of them. You wouldn't be able to do all of it at once. I just don't see it. Turner updating on the college side. D2 South Atlantic Conference moves all the fall sports to the spring. They do sponsor football. He said this isn't going to be a disaster logistically. The college side, especially the smaller colleges, there's just no way you can make it financially viable to do at least football. And if you can't do football, you probably can't do the other sports right now. It's just not realistic. So, ATL to Madtown, what's up? Thanks for hanging out. Regional bubbles is the way I think you'd have to go. There's a few you could make work, but seriously, you'd have to have like a month in between them. Would that be good for the league to do it that way? I don't know. I don't know what the league's supposed to do because I'm seeing the same people who said that you couldn't do a bubble now saying you can't do what MLS is proposing to do, which is to play in home markets. It's definitely riskier to play in home markets. There's no way around that. But I don't know what else the league can and should do at this point. It's very unfortunate that we're in this situation because I think the idea when the bubble was talked about, and especially when the bubble started, or when the bubble was announced, let's say, I think the idea was that we'd be in a very different place in dealing with the virus right now, or not. That doesn't take the financial pressure that MLS and other leagues are facing along with their partners and especially their content providers, broadcasters, all those people. It doesn't take any of the pressure away from them that we haven't dealt with this very well as a country. So there's not an easy way to handle it. That's the problem. The easy ways have been taken off the table. So I don't know. I think what MLS is talking about doing with a series of games in somewhat close proximity, as close as possible. We've heard the El Tráfico, the LA teams will play on August 22nd. We've heard DC and Cincinnati on the 21st. We've heard DC will play Red Bulls twice over that 3-week span. It appears that Atlanta will be playing Orlando and Miami and Nashville from what we're seeing. I thought DC might have factored into that. Doesn't look like it. Well, it's not, according to Stephen Goff at the Washington Post. Columbus would be one that if you're not playing Cincinnati, then I don't know why you'd play Columbus. You're probably not going to play Houston because they're in the West. So it kind of seems like it's Nashville, Orlando, Miami. I feel like they're going to do these 6 games and be reassessing as they go as to what happens next. Could they do these 6 games, realize that it's a challenge, it's difficult, and then look for some kind of a bubble scenario or 2 bubbles to play the remaining 12 games? I wouldn't take that off the table. I wouldn't rule that out. I think that could end up being a solution at that point, or playing less than 12 games or whatever that looks like. But I could see them doing the 6 and then reassessing and saying, you know what, this isn't going to work very well. Let's do something else to finish the season off. They have not put out a schedule yet. I feel like every time they get close, something else happens, and now we have the St. Louis Cardinals in Major League Baseball with another issue. So I feel like they're trying to find the right slot to announce it, but also manage all of the challenges that are coming up as they're trying to announce it, because they're probably having to reassess every single time. Ricky Ricardo said, would there have to be CONCACAF bubbles? I mean, that couldn't really work if the game's going to be a league season in some of these countries. Yeah, CONCACAF has come out and said that they intend to complete their competitions, which they have to, because you're talking about sponsors again. You're talking about TV revenue that's been sold worldwide. Like, you have to try to complete it. You don't want to give that money back. CONCACAF can't give that money back. You would cripple the region and cripple the smaller federations in the region if you don't complete the Champions League and the CONCACAF League and prepare for a Gold Cup next year and all these things. So everybody's trying to figure all of this out and do it safely, but also manage the financials. And there is not an easy answer. I know a lot of people think that the easy answer is don't do anything, don't play, cancel everything. You're going to see that that's not an easy answer either, more and more. Wait till you see some of the college responses to losing non-conference games. Wait till you see some of the smaller colleges that scrap a whole bunch of sports because they can't pay for them anymore. It's not easy to say that either, to say just don't do anything. You can't do anything. I don't know. I wish I had the answers. I wish I knew the best way. I wish, there was an obvious way. There's not, because you do have to combine the elements. The health and safety issues are massive. The financial issues are massive. They're both huge problems, and the solutions for one don't necessarily meet the needs for the other. And that's where we're at on a lot of things, not just sports. Take a couple more questions before we wrap up. ATL to Madtown. John and I are not on the call. USL Championship, the home team does the broadcast. There's a few teams that have local TV for their away broadcast, and that wouldn't be on ESPN Plus. That stream would be on a local TV. We don't have that yet, although there has been some talk at different points about potentially somebody coming in to pick something like that up. Would love to see it, obviously, because then we get to call more twos games, and I love the twos. It's a lot of fun. But don't have that kind of partner to do it yet. So it'll be the Birmingham crew on it tonight on ESPN Plus. But you can listen to John and I, not do play-by-play in color, but watch the game with us here on Twitch at 7:30. So we will be telling you what we see and what we think about the match as it goes. Not a traditional broadcast by any sense, because that's on ESPN Plus, but we'll all be watching it together and talking through it. CONCACAF on TV or streaming, I think it's going to depend on what the schedule looks like, because Fox has the rights now. Also, TUDN has the rights in Spanish. So it will be under the same platforms that we saw last time. So Fox would have the CONCACAF Champions League rights. I don't know about CONCACAF League and this other stuff. We'll have to wait and see. Everybody's looking for live sports right now, so I think it would be on TV. I think there could be streaming components to it, but I think it'll be on TV. You had the weird game, was it the Motagua game away that was on like Fox Soccer Plus or something because there was another game at the same time. There was some weird thing, some conflict. I can't remember who was on because I know Mike Watts was calling the other game, and I think Tyler Terrence was calling the Atlanta game. So that shouldn't happen, especially if they go to have to finish this in one location. I think all the games would be at separate times. So I would expect that the Fox family of networks has those. But stay tuned, and once we know, it's looking like late September for CONCACAF games. That's what's being reported out of Montreal. That's what's being reported out of Honduras. Talking about specifically the Montreal Olympia series, but I would think everybody else would be in that time frame. So we shall see. I did remember it right. Thank you, Ricky. It feels like, man, that feels like 3 years ago, and it was 5 months ago, 6 months ago. Good grief. ATL to Madtown, as we wrap up, is Sari on the list. He's on the list. He's out of work, so he's on. He was added to my list this morning. I don't think he's realistic in any sense. I think the problems that he had at Chelsea, the problems that he had at Juventus with being accepted, being embraced, those would be problems here. I think he would want to have a certain player profile to fit the way he wants to play, and that's going to take time to do. I don't think this job is one that is going to give time for a rebuild. And Juventus was the same way. Juventus has to win everything now. They can't rebuild. To be successful, he's got to have the right squad. I don't think he would get that here. He'd be a fascinating name. I mean, his style of play that we saw at Napoli, where we probably saw it at its best, it's fun. I would enjoy seeing it. I mean, he's done great work. I think he did good work at Chelsea. He did great work at Juventus. But here, I think he'd need more time than would be willingly given to him to build what he wanted to build. But yeah, you have to consider it. Atlanta's in a unique situation because, like we talked about earlier, it's a big fish in a different pond than the European theater, than the Champions League theater. But it's a big fish. So you're going to be talking to people like Sarri. You're going to be talking to people like Pochettino. You're going to be talking to somebody like Rafa Benitez. You're also going to potentially be talking to people who are on the way up or big fish from South America. You're going to be talking to lots of different people out there in different levels. But when you go back and you look at the two hires Atlanta United has made as manager, neither one was an unknown. Neither one was unproven. Neither one lacked experience at the top levels. So I think it's safe to look at that type of manager here, and Sarri would fit that. But is he in the same situation after what's happened at Napoli, then going to Chelsea, then going to Juventus? Would he be in the Tata Martino kind of situation of, you know what, I'm going to go to MLS, which is completely out of my comfort zone, but I'm going to go there and try to have success with the potential for getting a bigger job on the other side of it, or because I just want something different, and I don't want to deal with the craziness that I deal with over here. You deal with craziness, it'd be a different kind of craziness. Maybe the craziness would result more than anything from Maurizio Sarri not being able to smoke inside at establishments on a regular basis. The man smokes a lot of cigarettes. I believe he had health problems, and it was said that he smoked like 5 packs a day. It's craziness. I hope we can get that in check. I hope he ends up in a good spot because I like what he brings to the game. I think if you remember when he won the Europa League last year, the kind of emotional response to him, and people criticized him for that, which was awful. He'd never won a trophy like that, of course it's an emotional response. He was very happy to get that winner's medal. It meant a lot to him. What's wrong with that? People didn't ever embrace him at Chelsea, and it was very strange. It came off as very arrogant. At Juventus, he wasn't embraced either because he didn't have this immediate blow-away success, and I think it's unfair. He could do well. I just don't know if he would be interested in the job. It's a job that's probably not on his radar. It probably never has been. Whereas, as we said with Rafa Benitez, Atlanta United has been on his radar because of the Miguel Almiron transfer. So you're having a different conversation from the jump with a Rafa Benitez than you would with a Maurizio Sarri. They're both on my list. It's a long list, and we're not really hearing anything about a real list of what's going on yet. And we probably won't for a little while. Stay tuned for updates potentially on the Atlanta United schedule. I've seen, more games are leaking out there about that weekend of August 21st and 22nd. We haven't seen anything about opponent and day and time for Atlanta United yet, but you'd assume they're playing that weekend. That could come out this weekend. I mean, there's been some whispers that they could unveil the schedule for this next phase of 6 games this weekend as more things leak out. So that could happen between now and the watch-along tonight. You do have Champions League at 3 o'clock. CBS All Access has both. I'm watching Napoli-Barcelona. I can't wait to see how Gennaro Gattuso does in that one. I'm a big fan of Gattuso and what he's done at Napoli. It's just this big personality anyway. He's talked about this is going to be like climbing a mountain, going to Barcelona and getting a result. Turner, final question. Have we heard any updates on the USOC? We have not. Do you think they could do a Leagues Cup approach? Maybe. If it's canceled, what happens to the CCL spot? Good question. Turner says that Atlanta gets it due to being the current holders. Highly unlikely. I would think that it would go to... I think what they do is they'd probably put it in MLS with the MLS Cup runner-up getting an automatic spot. So that would mean... Because MLS traditionally, or the U.S. bids traditionally, it's the MLS Cup winner, it's the Supporter Shield winner, it's the best regular season record from the other conference than the Supporter Shield winner, and the Open Cup winner. So I think it would go to MLS Cup winner, MLS Cup runner-up, best regular season record, and best regular season record from the other conference. That's my guess. Leagues Cup approach, like MLS, the championship and League One. Yeah, I think you could. I think you'd have to figure out if any of the amateur teams that qualified could participate, and a lot wouldn't, but maybe some could. So they'd have to be considered for it. Maybe you give them the option to take their berth in the tournament this year or have it roll over to next year. They can't pick both. Maybe that's a possibility. I don't know. Could you do it kind of round-robin style? I don't know if you're going to be able to get those games in. I think it would be, if they do Open Cup, it wouldn't be everybody from MLS. It wouldn't be everybody from the championship. It wouldn't be everybody from League One. It would be a small number of teams. I mean, it might be 16, and you might just do from a round of 16. I think they'd love to do something with the Open Cup, but without knowing what the calendar looks like yet, it's just impossible to plan out. I think it would be a small number of teams, but still in a knockout tournament. That's my gut feeling anyway. And if they do that, then the spot would stay for CONCACAF Champions League would stay with the Open Cup. We'll see. That'll come later. I think MLS has to finish their scheduling for the rest of the year first, and it's not easy for them to do that either. So we'll see what news we get the rest of the day. Champions League, 3 o'clock. Canadian Premier League, that winner... They go into the CONCACAF League. That's how they can play their way into the CONCACAF Champions League. They don't get an automatic spot. Canada's automatic spot is from their cup competition because they have first division teams that play in MLS, which is a separate competition. So the Canadian Premier League winner has a route to it, but they have to go through a qualifying tournament essentially. Or they have to win the Canadian Championship as well. You have a couple different routes. Very complicated stuff. And CONCACAF, man, as difficult as it is for MLS right now, CONCACAF has it even more difficult because you're dealing with international travel and you've got a World Cup qualifying schedule to deal with. And I don't envy any of the logistics people. That's going to do it for this morning. Thanks for hanging out. The Power Hour is never 60 minutes, I'm learning. It goes longer than that, but that's okay. It's always fun to catch up on a Saturday. I think we'll continue doing these as we go, as we get back into normal schedules. We'll keep the Power Hour on Saturday morning. Hope you guys are enjoying them. Hope to see y'all back. Twitch.tv/soccer down here for the watch along tonight. 7:30. We'll probably be on a little bit before that. Atlanta United 2, and Birmingham Legion. Y'all have a good rest of the day. Enjoy Champions League later on, and we'll be talking to you this evening. Mucho platio.